If you've seen headlines about tariffs in 2026 and thought, I'll deal with that later, you're not alone. Most people are doing the same thing. Here's the problem. The problem isn't tariffs themselves. It's that prices don't rise evenly. They jump suddenly in specific categories, and people react too late. This isn't a prediction, and it's not a panic warning. What matters is knowing which purchases to move early, which ones to wait on, and how to avoid paying higher prices simply because you waited. That's what I'll walk you through today. If tariffs expand in some of the scenarios being discussed, some policy models estimate household costs ranging from hundreds to a couple $1,000s per year, depending on how broad the tariffs are and how much cost gets passed through to consumers. Most people are going to wait, watch prices go up, and then panic. But smart consumers, they're making moves right now. First, let's quickly talk about what tariffs actually are, because most people don't really understand this. A tariff is essentially a tax on imported goods. When the US puts a 20% tariff on products from China, that doesn't mean China pays 20% more. It means the American company importing those products pays 20% more. And guess who they pass that cost to? You. In some proposed scenarios that have been publicly discussed, we're talking 20% on most imports, potentially 60% on Chinese goods. Households could face price increases across most import-heavy categories: electronics, clothing, appliances, furniture, and food prices indirectly through higher costs for equipment, packaging, and transport, not direct grocery tariffs. Let me show you what this actually looks like with real numbers. These are scenario-based estimates, not guarantees. Say you're planning to buy a new laptop in 2026. Right now, that laptop costs $800. It's made in China. If a 60% tariff hits, depending on pass-through and markups, that $800 laptop could plausibly move into the low four figures, potentially higher in some cases. The importer's cost goes up, they add their markup, the retailer adds their markup, and prices climb. Or let's say you need new appliances. A washing machine that costs $600 today could jump to $850 or more. A $1,200 refrigerator could move toward $1,700 to $1,900. Now you might be thinking, okay Donald, but can't I just buy American-made products? And here's what most people don't realize. Even American-made products will likely get more expensive. Here's why. When imported goods get hit with tariffs, American manufacturers know they have less competition. They raise their prices too because they can. It's called pricing power. A 2018 study during the last major tariff expansion found that American-made washing machines increased in price by $86 on average, even though they weren't subject to tariffs. Why? Because imported washers got more expensive, so American manufacturers had room to increase prices without losing market share. This is where it gets really interesting. Tariffs don't just affect big purchases. They affect most import-heavy categories. Your clothing prices go up because most textiles are imported. Your food prices can increase indirectly through equipment and transport costs. Your car repairs cost more because auto parts are imported. Even your kids' toys. 88% of toys sold in the US are imported, most from China. And here's the critical part. When tariffs are announced, there's often a delay of weeks to months before implementation, though it varies by policy. That's when prices start climbing. But here's what happens. Everyone figures it out at the same time. Everyone rushes to buy before the tariffs hit. Demand spikes. Supply gets constrained. Prices go up even faster than the tariffs alone would cause them to. We saw similar patterns in 2018 and 2019. When steel and aluminum tariffs were announced, construction material prices rose sharply during that period, driven by tariffs alongside supply disruptions and demand spikes. People who waited to buy paid significantly more, not just because of tariffs, but because of panic buying. Now, you might be thinking, but Donald, what if the tariffs don't happen? What if this is all just talk? Fair question. But here's the reality. Even if tariffs don't expand as dramatically as some scenarios suggest, we're already seeing inflation, supply chain issues, and geopolitical tensions that are driving prices up anyway. The smart moves I'm about to show you make sense regardless of whether tariffs happen or not. So what are smart consumers actually doing right now? They're being strategic. They're understanding which purchases to accelerate and which to delay, what to stockpile and what to avoid. And they're doing it before these dynamics become more obvious. First, they're identifying their big ticket purchases for the next 18 to 24 months and making them now. If you know you need a new refrigerator, a new TV, a new computer, new furniture, anything expensive that's likely imported, consider buying it before mid-2026. Not because of panic, but because of math. Let's say you're planning to buy a $2,000 laptop in late 2026 for work. If you wait and tariffs hit, you might pay $2,600 to $2,800. But if you buy it now and put it on a 0% APR credit card for 18 months, you can pay it off interest-free before tariffs would have even kicked in. You could save yourself $600 to $800. Second, smart consumers are stockpiling strategic items, not toilet paper and hand sanitizer like 2020. That was panic buying. I'm talking about items that are imported, non-perishable, and you'll definitely use. Things like quality tools, clothing basics, electronics accessories, home goods. Keeping normal household reserves, not hoarding. Here's a concrete example. If you wear business clothes for work, buy your work wardrobe for the next year or two right now. Quality dress shirts, pants, shoes, most of these are imported. If tariffs hit, a $60 dress shirt might become $80 to $90. If you buy 10 shirts now versus later, you could save $200 to $300. That's real money. Third, they're front-loading household repairs and upgrades. Need a new roof? Get quotes now and lock in pricing. Planning to renovate your kitchen? Start that project in the first quarter of 2026, not late 2026. Building materials, appliances, labor costs, all of these will likely increase if tariffs expand. And this is where psychology comes in. Most people procrastinate on big expenses. They wait until something breaks. But smart consumers are flipping that script. They're doing preventive replacements on anything that's aging and likely to fail in the next 2 years. Fourth, and this is crucial, they're avoiding debt for discretionary purchases while strategically using it for essential investments. Here's what I mean. Don't finance a vacation or dining out. But if you need a car and you're going to need one anyway, buying before potential tariffs and financing at a low rate could be smarter than waiting and paying 20 to 30% more. The average new car has about $3,000 worth of imported parts. If comprehensive tariffs hit, car prices could jump $4,000 to $6,000. A 5% interest rate on $30,000 costs you about $4,000 over a 5-year loan. A 5% interest rate on $36,000 costs you $4,800. You're paying more in both the principal and the interest just because you waited. Now, some of you are thinking, this sounds like fear-mongering. You're telling people to spend money on stuff they might not need yet. But here's the difference. This is about timing planned purchases, not inventing new ones. There's a huge difference between panic buying and strategic timing. And here's the bigger lesson in all of this. Most people are reactive with their money. They wait for things to happen, then they respond. Smart consumers are proactive. They see economic signals, they understand trends, they make calculated moves before those moves become obvious to everyone else. This is the same principle that applies to investing, to career moves, to real estate. The people who do well financially aren't necessarily smarter, they're just earlier. They act when they see the pattern, not when everyone else confirms it for them. Look, I get it. It feels weird to buy a refrigerator when yours still works. It feels uncomfortable to spend money now on things you could buy later. But that discomfort, that's exactly what keeps most people from building wealth. They're so focused on immediate comfort that they miss strategic opportunities. The smart consumers I'm talking about, they're not rich people with unlimited budgets. They're regular people who understand that timing matters. They're people who would rather feel slightly uncomfortable today than significantly worse off tomorrow. Now, let's be realistic. Not everyone can afford to front-load purchases. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, you can't just go buy a year's worth of clothing or a new appliance you don't need yet. I get that. If your situation doesn't allow early purchases, that's not failure. It just means you focus on flexibility instead. Even if you can only make one strategic purchase, even if you can only buy a few months of basics instead of a year, that's still better than nothing. Do what you can with what you have. Here's exactly what to do this week. Make a list of everything you're planning to buy in the next 18 to 24 months. Big purchases, regular purchases, anything over $100. Put them in order of importance and likelihood of price increases. Research current prices right now. Screenshot them. Save them. Know what things cost today so you can recognize good deals and avoid panic pricing later. If you have good credit, apply for a 0% APR credit card now while you can. Use it strategically for essential purchases you're accelerating, but only if you can pay it off before the promotional period ends. Set aside whatever money you can, even $50 a month, specifically for strategic purchases over the next 6 months. Build a buffer so you can act when you need to. Look, whether tariffs expand significantly in 2026 or moderately or not at all, prices are being affected by multiple factors: inflation, supply chain issues, geopolitical instability. The strategies I just gave you make sense in any of those scenarios.